Hello and welcome to our MDM Webcast. Your e-commerce is strategies to increase digital orders in 2021. I'm Tom Gale, CEO and publisher of Modern Distribution Management and our website, mdm.com. Thank you for participating in our call today. I'll serve as your moderator for today's 60-minute program, sponsored by Conexiom. Conexiom is a cloud-based sales order automation solution that eliminates manual document processing. Manufacturers and distributors across the globe trust Conexiom to deliver touchless order processing with 100% data accuracy to eliminate unnecessary cost and resource burdens and redeploy human capital to provide the highest levels of customer service. Today's program is being recorded, and we will be sending a link to it to follow up, to listen again, or share with your colleagues. And I encourage you to please ask a question at any time during today's program in the chat or Q&A windows. I'll be moderating those and bring them to our guests today. Let me briefly set the stage for our conversation today. As we depart 2020 and look ahead to 2021, no one can predict the future, but there is near universal consensus that we will be in a growth year. And what success is going to look like will be defined for distributors and manufacturers in ways that they've been transforming the business models, their teams, and the ways in which they're creating competitive advantage. And that's really around the way that they are serving customers and how they want to be served. And while e-commerce projects have consumed a lot of the oxygen in the room for most companies for the past several years, they are only one piece of what needs to be a more comprehensive strategy. The real battles for customer engagement, service, and seamless experience will be won across several digital fronts and forms of digital order management. And that's why I'm delighted to introduce our guest today, who really spent a lot of time thinking ahead of the curve about where digital commerce is and where it's going. Christian Wiltrout, the Chief Operating Officer of SureWerx, and Ray Grady is the Chief Executive Officer of Conexiom. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Let me ask both of you just to give us a little bit of background on you and your companies to start off. Christian?
Yeah, Tom and Ray, great to be with you today, and really glad to be here with the whole group. And benefited from this series from MDM this year and so much over the years. So I sincerely hope some of my experiences can help the rest of the group. I'm Christian Wiltrout. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of SureWerx. SureWerx, if you don't know, it's anyone with us today, we're a global manufacturer of safety and PPE products and also tool and equipment products based in co-headquartered in Chicago and Vancouver, British Columbia. And then just real briefly, my background, been in the industry and for the better part of the last 20 years, both on the distribution side and on the manufacturing side. So Tom, really glad to be here today to talk about a great topic that I know we're all reflecting on here at the end of 2020.
Great. And Ray, welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys. And Christian, thank you. And Tom, really looking forward to not only this, but spending more time with you in 2021. I'm Ray Grady. I'm the CEO of Conexiom. I've been here for about 9 months. Prior to my time in Conexiom and automation, I've spent 20 plus years in e-commerce. So your words, as you kicked off the call, definitely resonated with me, Tom, and the experiences I've had not only here but across the industry. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Great, thanks, Ray. So to kick things off, Christian, tell us a little bit more about the SureWerx digital journey. We were on a call before and conversations with Ray, and of course we've talked a lot over the years. So give us a little bit more detail about what that looks like.
Yeah, happy to, Tom. And I think, I think of it in light of our overall big picture. I look at our digital journey and also our digital strategy from the lens of our overall journey and overall mission and strategy. And so our mission is to put our products in the hands of people that need them. And especially in PPE, and it's been fresh on everybody's mind this year, we're passionate about that. Our products help protect the people who use them every day, whether it's N95 respirators, or if you live in the Northeast of the US right now, you're getting buried under a bunch of snow. We make traction products that reduce slip and falls on snow and ice by 95%. And so our mission is to put those products into the hands of the person who who wears it on their person or uses it, and so that they go home at the end of the day in the same condition they came to work. And we measure our success in achieving that mission through various things. One is our sales. We know if we're growing our sales with our distributor partners to end user consumers, we know as that grows, more people are using our products, and it helps us achieve our mission. And so I like to start there, and how digital fits into that. I would say, one, we take sort of a big picture view of digital. You said it well at the beginning, Tom. It's more than e-commerce. So a big part of it for us as a manufacturer is enabling our distributor partners to succeed in an e-commerce and what we all sometimes call an omni-channel environment. But there are other really important pieces to it. And so we measure our success based on our growth. And I think a key theme for us is to get that growth, to achieve the mission, we think our products need to be where our consumers, our ultimate consumer of the product, wants to be. We meet them where they want to be rather than where we might prefer. And that's evolving. And so where our buyers want to buy products is our distributor partners that add great value, and more that includes components of digital commerce, whether that's straight e-commerce and being able to find products and figure out what products solve the problem, or whether it's being able to transact effectively and efficiently between the end consumer and the distributor. Those things are really important to that consumer. And so we want to be part of that to make sure our products are where they want to be. And so, maybe just a couple other brief comments. We sell exclusively with distributor partners. And so we're very, very focused on things that can help enable distributor partners to be successful in digital, such as we've made large investments in content and product content, which is really around kind of the awareness part of a buyer journey or a customer experience, if you will. Content helps an end consumer determine which products will solve the problems that they're looking to solve. We've made big investments in our content and creating that and sharing that with distributor partners. We've done a lot of work to digitally influence end users to find our products with our distributors through search engine marketing and database marketing and other mechanisms, which is sort of like a different aspect of digital. And then the last one I'll mention is we try to run our own business in an effective manner in terms of how we transact with distributor partners to again, make that as seamless as possible. And we think if we do all of those things well, everything else being equal, we'll grow faster. And for us, whether it's SureWerx or I'm sure it's the same, Ray, for your company, like everyone's goal, like you're trying to grow faster than the market. And we believe strongly that those who focus on this and who are good at it, everything else being equal, we think they will grow faster than the market grows and take some share in the future. And especially in light of what you said, Tom, we're bullish on 2021. We're excited about a strong economic recovery, and we think this will be a big part of that.
Yeah, great. Ray, thoughts about what the SureWerx team is doing?
Well, I think I think what the SureWerx team is doing, I've said this to Christian, I think, until someone can show me a better idea, I think it just makes all the sense in the world, right? It's a very pragmatic and logical approach. Let's go ahead and be relevant where our customers are, and let's work with our customers and engage them the way in which they want to be engaged, right? So if you look at just some of the digital investments made in enriching the product and then getting that relevant product in the right place at the right time to a buyer, I think it's super smart. I think obviously, continuing to leverage things like EDI for high volume trading partners can obviously drive a lot of cost out there and improve accuracy of the solutions getting to the end customer on time. And then for customers that aren't going to change the way in which they buy, leveraging solutions that can automate the internal side of the business that Christian articulated, right? Like if it's simple for our customer to do something in a way in which they may not be so easy for us, that's okay. But let's go ahead and let's drive the inefficiencies out of our processes. And I think when you look at that holistically, that's how modern companies are succeeding and winning, and to Christian's point, taking share from customers who are not looking at it in that way.
Yeah. let me do this. We've got a couple of polls here that I'd like to ask those on board today to take a look at. And so we've got three here. Let me just launch the first one here, and it's a yes or no, and it's a little bit of a softball, but I mean it's either yes or no, and I'm going to be really interested to see what the responses are. But I also think that'll set the stage here. We talked about three topics that we really want to cover today. And one is around omni-channel. One is around what the definition of customer experience looks like, and then specifically around digital orders and automation, what that looks like. And all of this is really integrating in ways that have accelerated over the last 12 months, right? So I guess the first place to start might be is to talk a little bit more detail, Christian, maybe in the ways that you do view omni-channel. And part of this is if you take a look at every company, there's a digital transformation journey taking place of some form or another, right? In the last 5 years, particularly, and for some companies, it's really started this year in some cases. It feels to me like the first step of that was getting a web platform up, right? An e-commerce store. But then when you get into that, then you get into all of the issues around cleaning up data, or around just content in terms of what's existed in your ERP versus what it needs to be in terms of organization and cleanliness for e-commerce purposes. And then from there, it seems like there's all these other more omni-channel aspects. And so I wanted to just lay that out kind of as that's kind of been the traditional view. And so what has SureWerx done to kind of address those issues, and where are you going now?
Well, Tom, I think, yeah, there's a lot in there around omni-channel. I think, maybe I'm at the end of the year, I'm at the end of the calendar year. Sometimes I'm prone to like trying to really step back and think about what does all this stuff mean. But I think about omni-channel, like, and a lot of this is from my distributor experience, not just the manufacturer side, but on the distributor side, I think about omni-channel in terms of like, I always thought about it as like, what is our value? What is our role? Why do we exist? What is our role and what is our value? And how do we add value in the world? What's our purpose? And what's our role? And so why I say that with omni-channel is I think there was a time, seems like a long time ago, wasn't that long ago, when we were all saying like, what do we even mean by digital? What does it even mean? Does it mean Amazon is getting orders for products that I sell and they're selling them for cheaper? Is that what it means? And I want to do that. Does it mean a big national distributor with a division that's pure digital commerce is got shipping for $50, and is that what it means? But where I think it's gone is with omni-channel is I bring back to this question of how do I add value, and I think what it says to me for us, we think of a core, what we call a core industrial and safety distributor, which is not Amazon, not the ones that are headlines and the big public companies, but it's that core industrial and safety distributor, which is our core customer, which, by the way, that's moving the market. That's most of the market. That's where most of the dollars are. And what I often would think back to is, so that's not our value. The Amazon, fast free shipping is not our value. In the places that I've been, our value was technical, consultative, responsive, plant shut down in the middle of the night, like we're available engineers that can work on things. And so to me, what omni-channel says is like, how does it weave in with that value proposition to make other parts of the business efficient and effective? But it's not what it never has been, at least in the companies that I've been part of, is like, let's ditch our value added and see if we can build a website that's, as good as somebody else. One, that's probably not a great strategy. Like, they're 15 years and $10 billion worth of investment ahead of us. And two, we don't need to do that to be really successful in the future. So maybe that's one thought on omni-channel. It's like, how does all of this plug in with the bigger picture of what is our value proposition? And then, maybe the other thing, just one other the concept that I think about is kind of the buyer journey, which sounds like kind of like marketing, talk when you say it. But when I think of the buyer journey, I think of like awareness, purchasing the product, and then managing and owning a product, and then hopefully repurchasing a product. And so my other thought on this big picture of digital is, if you think of those 4 steps, if you can create awareness among a consumer of your product, you can use digital to help them purchase the product, and you can help them then own the product, maybe learn about it, maybe upgrade or manage, and then finally repurchase the product. Maybe the other thing I'd say, Tom, as a backdrop is, like, I think about all of this stuff in light of those 4 major steps. And again, if we can make all 4 of those work great, we'll go get, we think we'll go get a whole lot of sales.
Yeah. What it sounds like to me, Christian, when you say that is rather than sort of this transactional focus that it seemed, a lot of just the e-commerce platform aspect of it, this is a much more comprehensive sort of life cycle management of the kind of the marketing aspect, but it's all integrated together.
I think that's right. And I think the transactional part of it, if it breaks down, nothing else matters, right? If you do a great job of awareness and you get to use a sports analogy, you get to the 1-yard line and you can't get the order because of a transactional issue, everything else was kind of a waste of time. But to me, that's a case to make the transactional aspect of it as efficient, automated, seamless as possible, and let machines and systems worry about that, and then have people worry about the other stuff. You know what I mean? So,
but part of this is, it feels to me like that this is sort of a maturing, I guess, of the industry in terms of how it's leveraging and integrating digital. And part of this is, and you mentioned it, as far as, Amazon Business, transactionally has created an amazing customer experience, but what you described is a little bit more comprehensive, offers some really key differentiation aspects to just that transactional aspect of what that looks like. Ray, you've been on the consumer side as well in terms of what that looks like. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think it's, I think Christian hit a couple really important points there, right? Talking about digital experience or website, when you're looking at e-commerce, that's not building a website, right? That's building a business and a core competency in your company. And if you're not willing to invest and your customers aren't willing to go along, with the journey with you, just standing up a website's not going to get it done. But, digital, regardless of your e-commerce strategy, it's got a huge value driver, right? Like you could use digital as a lead capture mechanism to distribute leads to your best distributors as a manufacturer, right? You can use it to allow your distribution partners to self-service and learn about new products, right? You can use it to market, to acquire new customers. So it's not just about, I think, to Christian's point, the transaction. I think, again, if we're relevant and we're where the customer wants to be, and we're delivering a solution that makes sense to them, that's allowing them to engage the way in which they want to engage and ultimately transact the way they want to transact, and we're doing it in an efficient way, I mean, we're going to beat the competitor, right? And if the competitor only has one channel to engage with the customer, and if you as a distributor or manufacturer have multiple ways in which to engage with that customer, more often than not, I think you're gonna beat that pure play. So in this business, so I think we've seen many examples of that. I know many people talked about the demise of Grainger when Amazon announced that they were going to get into the supply business, and that was a long time ago. And last time I checked, Grainger's doing pretty well in their overall strategy, because it's there's multiple ways in which one can engage. Just as an example.
Yeah. So what does that look like? I mean, this segues a little bit into talking more about customer experience, and you mentioned it, Christian, in terms of thinking about your strategy. What does that look like going forward?
Yeah, I think if I would map customer experience back to this customer journey, and I always start with the end consumer and kind of work my way backwards. I try to think of them, right? Think of the person who's using the product and their customer experience. And then again, for us as we are experts in our own product. We better be, like, we're the foremost experts in our own products that we make and sell. Our distribution partners are the experts in their needs of their customers across many, many different products and services that their customers use, that their end user customers use. So if I sort of map that back to the journey for the end user, maybe start with awareness. Like a huge focus for us has been content, product information, and creating content and providing it to our distributors to in turn provide it to end users with the goal of awareness. So for instance, the traction aid devices that I mentioned before, it's a new category. It has lower awareness than goggles, for example. It's just, everyone knows goggles and glasses, and hard hats has extremely high awareness. Traction aid devices have lower awareness because it's a newer category. They're great for us because it's great growth, but so we have to create more content to create awareness, and video would be an example of that, where we have lots of videos that we provide distributors that they can disseminate to end users in lots of different ways, by emails, on their website. And so that's all around awareness. And then maybe I'll just mention the next step of it, like around purchase, can be kind of in two ways as it pertains to content. One is just the particulars, like how many of them are in a box. Like a customer needs to know that to buy it. Is it 1 or 12 in a box? So we try to do a really good job with that. You could call that operational content. Try to do a really good job with operational content. What is the part number? The part number is ABC. Like, I need to know that, or I can't get across the 1 yard line to actually complete the transaction. So that's just maybe an example, Tom, around awareness and purchase, where content is a huge part of it. And when I map that back to the big picture of digital, it's that self-influence. It's where does that customer want to be? They want to influence themselves online, especially in 2020. It turns out more than ever before. They may not be able to physically see a sales professional. They want to influence themselves online through consuming content from their distributor that they see online, and then ultimately from there go to purchase. So maybe just, Tom, in one part of the journey, that's an example of how I think that kind of manifests.
Yeah, thanks. Let me just kind of recap in terms of the pandemic accelerated transformation. We had 86% of people say yes and 14% say no, but that's not a surprise. We thought that might go there. So I guess the next thing to talk about, I think, is in around this sort of the experience aspect. And we talked before about these 5 fronts of digital, and I'd like to talk a little bit about sort of the I guess I don't know how to approach it exactly, around relative importance, or how you think about it a little bit, as far as the e-commerce piece, e-procurement, and again, I think this comes back to segmentation around the way specific parts of your customer base want to interact and do business with you, because you've got emerging marketplaces taking place, EDI with specific customer sets, and then email as well. And let's talk a little bit about what the play is and how that's evolving in that mix. Ray, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I think, I think, again, I'll go back to how SureWerx is looking at it, and then I apply that and give that advice candidly to other customers that we'll work with. There's not a one size fits all strategy, right? So again, if one can get their customers to go to a web portal and self-serve, that's you should do that, right? Because you're going to be able to upsell, cross-sell. It's the most cost-effective channel for you. But then you need to ask yourself, does my customer want to do that? Is the way my customer, the way they buy today, is it a burden to them? It may be a burden to me, but is it a burden to them, right? Like e-commerce on the consumer side, very convenient. I can sit on my couch, I click one-click buy, and it's in my porch in 2 days. That's convenient for me. But for many of our and I learned this in the e-commerce world, and I'm surely learning it now, the way in which a customer buys to go raise a purchase order and email it in, as an example, worked for them. So if you're gonna expect they're just gonna change, it's probably not going to happen. You're gonna have to incent them to do that, or you allow them to engage that way, and then maybe you introduce the portal in another way. Or EDI as an example, it makes a ton of sense for a certain cohort of customers, but not every customer is going to be able to make that investment, and maybe you don't want to make that investment. So, when you look across all of these channels, I think you just need to be really mindful. And, Christian talked about customer experience. Put yourself in their shoes, right? Like, how is it that they engage with us today? How can I make that better? And then what channels do I need to light up to delight them and to keep them as my customer and maybe acquire new customers? So it's not a one size fits all strategy. Like certain manufacturers or certain distributors in certain categories, their customers are going to buy either way. You just need to be mindful of what they're going to want to do, and then stand up solutions that will allow them to, conduct business the way they want to do it with you.
Yeah. How do you get that kind of insight from customers? What's the best way to try to get that around how they really want to interact?
So I think what we do is when we hear now, right? Like we'll go talk to our customers as an example. We'll take Christian as an example. We'd say, okay, show me your orders. Where do they flow? Like how many are coming in through the phone? How many are coming in over email or fax? How many are coming in through a portal? How many are coming in through EDI? Right? When you kind of understand that, you understand that flow, and then you can map that to industry and say, well, gee, industry says 7% e-commerce and 48% manual, and you're only 1% e-commerce. So you probably need to maybe you're not doing something right there, right? But the 48%, you're not going to get them to automatically shift over time. So then what are we going to do? So it's really taking a step back, mapping the order flow, maybe looking at industry and then saying, okay, what do they want to do? What do you want to do? And then tactically, what can you do to get them to engage with you the way in which they want, that maybe you ultimately want them to engage, but not disrupt the way to where you're making a experience that's suboptimal to the customer.
Yeah, just add to it. I mean, in terms of our transactional or commerce relationship that we have directly with our distributors, it covers every possible scenario under the sun. We have many distributor customers in all different manner of engagement, from, as you said, Ray, EDI to we have a portal. In some cases, they have a portal and we go to their portal and we get orders. We have phone, we have email, we have fax. I don't know the last time I saw one that was in an envelope with a stamp on it. I'll bet it's happened sometime this year, maybe. That one's not hanging around too much anymore, pretty similar to a fax. But we have every single one of those, and probably several that I haven't named. And we just ask them why. Like, why do you do it that way? Here's an example. Like some distributors of ours, okay, why do you send fax orders? They're less common than they used to be. And the answer is, we have an ERP system where we create a purchase order, and the way it's configured is it takes the purchase order and it converts it to a fax, and it sends it into a system that sends a fax to you, my supplier. That's why they do it. That process has been there for a long time, and it's super efficient. Their purchasing agents know how to do it. And so for us, it's not fruitful to spend an enormous amount of time trying to change that. What we'd rather do is just put in a system where it's super efficient. In this example, Conexiom is the way we deal with that. Like fax or email, we just put in a system that automates that on our side, and we say, we're fine with you to do that. We have these other options too, but why spend our cycles engaging with them on that topic? Because it's not going to help either one of us grow. What I'd rather do is talk to them about their customers and what conversations we can have about our innovative products and how we can drive growth for us, and also, enhance safety for their customers. It's just kind of a different mindset, because that's really better place to spend our time. And in particular for our core independent distributors, and I've worked in them, you have less people. You don't have an army of people running around. You don't have an IT team of 50 people that can do these mega projects and you probably wouldn't get the payback if you did. And so, for us, is let's try to simplify it as much as possible and keep our focus on growth.
Great, thanks. Let me go to our second poll here, and this is around automation use in 2021 in terms of looking out a little bit. Go ahead and launch it here. Are you using automation to reduce headcount and create cost efficiencies in 2021? And just do this on the fly here. I'm interested to see where this goes. And maybe while this is coming back, Ray, you can maybe talk a little bit about how you've seen some shifts in terms of how your customers have looked at automation during 2020 and where that's going.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about reduction of headcount, and obviously that can be a thing we can do, right? If we can automate something that's a manual process, we can eliminate headcount. But that's really not, at least this year, so maybe surprisingly so, that's not been the main driver articulated us on the justification for what we want to do. What we're seeing more often than not is, listen, I need to grow my top line and I cannot add people. So how am I going to do that? So it's more about, how do I position myself for growth? How do I reallocate labor to go engage with the customer, upsell, cross-sell, delight them, find a new customer, right? How do I take a burden off of my sales team who's rekeying orders and allow them just to be in front of the customer? So yes, I mean, obviously cost takeout is a big deal. It's a very simple ROI model, but at least in a lot of the conversations I've been in, it's that reallocation of labor, allowing that person, quite frankly, to do what they'd like to do. I mean, nobody wakes up in the morning that's like high fives their wife on the way out the door saying, I get to go rekey orders into an ERP system today. But they do like to engage with customers, and they do like to be able to talk about the value proposition that their products or services can bring to that customer. So we've seen a lot of that kind of reallocation. And interestingly enough, we've had a couple of examples where, we were articulated as a business continuity investment. And I would lie to you guys if I said that coming in here in February, where I landed in February 9th, that we'd be a business continuity play. But in a world where people may not be able to physically get in and do what they do, to be able to automate something, we've seen that as well. So those are some of the observations I've had just in the 10 months I've been here.
Yeah, let me share the results here. And so it's 50-50. So it goes, I think, to some of the comments you were making, Ray, in terms of people are thinking more in terms of growth strategy versus either reducing headcount or reallocation to higher level value activities within the company.
Yeah.
And I think there's an area here where technology automation is at the intersection of growth and cost and process efficiency. And when you can use technology automation to make your customer experience better, you can do both. And it's like, how many things can you find that can both contribute to driving your sales through making your customer experience better and process effectiveness at the same time? It's like, you don't see a lot of things like that. So if you see one, it kind of behooves you to work on it. It's kind of how I look at it. And for us, it's the same way. Like, all of this is around growth. Like, and I think most of us are probably this way. If you can get the growth, like, you'll be successful. Other things will come along if you can drive top line. And so I look for things in this area that can do both.
Yeah. And Christian, as you developed along this journey, what about the cultural aspect of this in terms of how you kind of transformed your business and what SureWerx looked like? What does that look like in terms of sort of the cultural aspects of making it successful?
Yeah, I think, we're super fortunate in SureWerx. We have this fantastic team and this culture of that's very, it's sort of like entrepreneurial and just kind of get things done. And we've got a remarkably quite diverse workforce and really flexible team, as evidenced by what's happened this year with just total chaos. And everyone experienced that total chaos in March, and scrambling to get people working and effective. And then how do you communicate with people when you don't see them every day? How do teams work together? So, and we're humbly very proud of how we were able to tackle that and get to this different way of working this year. And so we're really fortunate in terms of the culture. I think for us, and so I think we have probably maybe better change readiness or change preparedness than what I've seen in the past. The other thing too for us is just the pace is very fast. And so we've got we don't like, welcome to every company, like, you have limited resources. Every company, even if you're Google or Apple, they want more resources than what they have. You have limited resources and unlimited things you want to do. And with a fast pace that we've had in 2020, I think our great people are looking for any way they can streamline and automate parts of their job so that they can do other things. And we've been fortunate to have that. I think, from a change perspective, I do think there's something important around helping our team understand that technology automation doesn't exist to reduce the number of people that we have in our company. Like if we grow, we're going to have more people, and we're going to have more opportunities for the team we have to be more successful, both professionally and for their families. And so as they see that, it really helps with the buy-in. But I think for most companies, there's an opportunity to make sure the team know that the technology automation is here to drive growth and make our day more and more and more fulfilling. And Ray, as you said, people don't wake up in the morning saying, gosh, I'd like to rekey a bunch of orders, or I'd like to review a bunch of orders that somebody else keyed in and look for the mistakes that they might have made because they had to type 50,000 keystrokes today. As we clean up those things and have our team work on things that are more kind of higher order, more valuable type of things and more engaging, great people love that. Great people love that, and they bring those kinds of things to us. I mean, the best people on the team are bringing those ideas to us, saying, here's ways we can do this.
Ray, what are your takes in terms of the change management challenges that go along with this?
Well, I think, when you look at when you look at just overall omni-channel and change management, it kind of depends on the channel, right? So like from an e-commerce standpoint, obviously we need to make sure that internally, it's not, as I mentioned earlier, it's not just a website, right? So do you have someone who's going to wake up every day and worry about bringing a new customer to your digital property, or bringing an existing customer and maybe upselling or cross-selling, right? If you look at the change management on, say, something like our solution, I think to Christian's point, I think people at first blush might say, okay, automation equals elimination of my role, and there could be some pushback there. As I mentioned, and I think, Christian, as an example, right? Like it's not about just driving cost out. It can be, how do we be more efficient to reallocate people to do something different, right? So it's sort of, getting people to understand, hey, this is not to eliminate, this is to allow you to do really what it is, that you want to do, right? So it's really more, you got to kind of look at the channel and apply the right change management tactics across it to get the results that you're looking for.
I think as business managers, it's super critical to be sensitive to the change readiness and the change management. So the comment I'm about to make is not meant to diminish that, but the comment is at the same time, like, what choice do we have? Like, we have to move. This is the direction we got to go. You know what I mean? Like, as we have these technologies that can make the company more effective. If you ultimately, just a SureWerx comment, if we rewind it all the way back to our mission, like, we can't achieve the mission successfully over the long run if we do not adopt all of the knowledge and tools and innovations and cost management opportunities that are at our disposal in 2020, that many of which didn't exist last year or the year before. I know it, not to oversimplify it, but like, how could you ever be super successful if you didn't, grab each one of those opportunities and really try to run with it? It's just, you just kind of have to. Now, again, the change management and bringing the whole team along in that journey is super, super critical, because if they're not, it won't work. It'll eventually collapse if people aren't bought in. But I think, rational team members see that, like, this is what great companies do. They really push these things, as to the edge in some cases, to take share and be successful in the long run.
Yeah. Well, I've heard fairly often over the last several months how, if this year has, created the sort of the impetus or the drive to make some of these changes, but at the same time, I think it doesn't acknowledge the complexity in terms of the other aspects, and as far as productivity, the Zoom fatigue, and just the overall, everybody's fatigued this year as we've come into the last quarter, I think, and there's been a little bit of a rebound, and everybody's at a different place in that. It depends on the week, but there's an argument that this year may have been an easier case to make for change management, but I also just want to acknowledge, I don't think it makes it any easier to actually make the change and get people to buy into it, particularly in light of just the challenges that we're all going through right now. Yeah, that was just my own role. personal statement for the
We saw that. I mean,
webcasting.
we saw that here, right? We hired 100 people this year, and to get people excited, to get them embrace embrace a culture, be excited about what you're doing when you've never actually met, right, your peers. It's a challenge, so for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me kick off this final poll here, because I think it'll tie into where we're going to focus our time here remaining. And that's around digital order growth. Are you expecting to grow the percentage of digital orders in your order mix in 2021? And while that's coming in, Ray, there's also a question here that came in. And again, a reminder that if you do have a question for Ray or Christian, please send it on in the Q&A. We're seeing an increase in digital orders in 2020 based on the way our customers are buying due to the pandemic. How can sales order automation grow revenue and improve the ability to process digital orders?
Yeah, so a couple ways. I think one, growing revenue, if you can take people who are to kind of the point I made earlier, if you have a person who's spending 50% of their, let's say they're a seller, right, or they're customer service and they can upsell and cross sell, and they're spending 50% of their time doing a manual task, that's 50% of their time that they're not in front of a customer, right? So can we get more out of our existing customer base by allowing our team to focus and do what they're good at? And this is the perfect time of year to ask the question, do I need to hire people to help achieve the 2021 result? Or can I automate certain processes and reallocate people? I think if you can do those things, logically, I think if you look at, and historically, our customers would tell you, you'll drive an increase in top line for sure, right? So if it's about revenue growth, yeah, it may not seem intuitive that automating an internal process can lead to revenue growth. Our customers would tell you can, because they're reallocating labor to go do that.
Yeah.
I was just going to add, Tom, just to add to that real quick. I think to my way of thinking, if you have sales professionals doing order entry, that's like a massive red flag, that their time isn't being used effectively. Maybe that's what I tell I think about that a lot, and maybe even more finer point on that would be if there are people on your team who can have value added engagement with your customers, that are capable of value added engagement with customers, which should be just about everybody in the organization. If they're spending time doing manual order entry, that too is a red flag. There are companies, and these aren't, if I think of companies that I've engaged with as a consumer, whether they're technology or whether it's your bank or other companies, where you talk to a customer service representative, and then when you need to do a transaction, they don't actually do the transaction. They tell you just log in. Now that we're done and I've explained how to do this, just hang up and log into the website and do it yourself. Well, why do they do that? Because it's not valuable to have that knowledgeable person typing in the numbers and letters into a box that you tell them to type in, and quantity times 10, transfer $100 from this account to that account. So if I map that to our world, I think, and I say this kind of for myself, that should be a red flag if I see that happening. And how do I get that activity out so that person can focus all of their energy on helping drive growth?
Yeah. And let me just share the results here. And so 91% say they are planning to grow the percentage of digital orders in the order mix for 2021. And I guess that's not terribly surprising, really, based on what we are all experiencing and going through right now. Christian, what I wanted to ask you, because we last talked, I think it was in April, and you were just in the thick of trying to fulfill customer needs as for PPE at that point. And in terms of you implementing a lot of automation, I guess how did you, if you hadn't had that in place, I guess in terms of some of the automation aspects, how long ago did you really start building that in? I guess what I'm trying to figure out or get a sense of is, was that a year-long process leading up as you came into 2020, or was it a longer process? What did that look like from a time frame standpoint?
Well, started a long time ago, and I'd characterize our journey in terms of the kind of the automation and specifically order automation aspects of digital started for SureWerx a long time ago, long before I was there. And I think the the root cause of, or the driver of that many years ago is we just have a company where we don't have a huge number of people. That's our culture. And of course, we believe it can contribute to our financial performance. We just don't have like an army of people running around. And so there's always been a mentality in our company of like, how do I squeeze out any kind of process improvements or automation? Like there's this culture of, I guess, continuous improvement. So it started a long time ago. Conexiom we've had Conexiom for like years. We scaled it up this year. It's an example, and there are other technologies and processes that we have that have been in place for a long time, but that we scaled up more in 2020. For us, I don't think there was anything like fundamentally new, meaning like a new concept that didn't exist in 2019 that we put in 2020, but more like a case or a burning platform to scale up some of these things. And it's helped us greatly. It's helped us keep our focus on back to the mission, especially with PPE and the pandemic and things like that. Like it's helped us really keep our energy on fulfilling the mission. I've just been impressed with our team with how fast they've moved to scale up and respond quickly when our distributors have customer needs. And I think, the fact that we've been working on this for a long time has helped us kind of like pivot and move a little bit more quickly this year to be able to do that.
Yeah, just one interesting point I'd add, because Christian, you told me this. It's not only something the business looks at and takes pride on. It's a KPI at the board level, right? So digitization, multi-channel at a board level, right? If you've got from the CEO down that, okay, we're going to look at this thing at the board level, you're going to hit the results. And I'm very impressed how SureWerx thinks about that.
I think there's like a cultural, or maybe not culture, change management piece in there too, which is like I'm fond of thinking about it. Like if I exercise, like you don't need to explain to me that it has benefits. Like I just need to go do it. Like I just need to get up in the morning, and go do it. And if you do it, you'll get the benefits. There's no debate about that. We already know that story has been written. And so if your team can get conviction around these topics that we're talking about, you can move on from the conversation of like, one, you go from what does it mean to two, like, will it make a difference or will it work? And as Ray said, once you know that, we just say, okay, how many transactions did we do and how many were manual? And then we want to increase that. We want to continuously increase that. We don't talk about or think anymore about what's the result of it. And I think, again, sidebar comment, I think great leadership teams figure out what the actions are that get the result, and then they focus all the energy on the actions rather than obsessing about, are we going to get the result? Are we going to get enough sales? Just figure out what are the things that get you the sales, and then try to do those more and faster and better. And you have confidence that you will get the result if you do that.
There's a question here. As a manufacturer, what do you think of where to buy as a program where end users can click from a product on your site to a distributor's webpage so they can order the item?
Yeah, you see it a lot more. And so I think I have a perspective on it. You see it a lot more, and it's easier to do than it used to be. I'm not like a deep expert in this area. I'll share the manufacturer perspective on it. Manufacturer perspective, I think, is I want to use digital to influence end users, and I want to scale the ways that I can get an end user with demand for my product to a distributor to do a transaction, and I'm willing to make an investment in that because the investment has a return. And so, but as somebody who doesn't transact with an end user, the ways that I can do that are very, very limited. I can't call them and do a sale. I don't want to. We can't get them to our website and have them buy something from us. We don't want to do that. That's not our role. That's not why we exist. And so what it allows us to do is the concept, I think, as a manufacturer, is it allows me to make investments in whether it's search engine marketing or email database marketing. And if through that work, I find somebody who just wants to buy, I can bring them to a brand site, and I can give them the options of where to buy. I think that's the manufacturer side of it. I don't pretend to be able to speak for our distributor customers and wouldn't want to try. I think I can speak to my own experience on the distributor side, which is I like that too. If it's helping me if it's connecting those consumers to me, I like that too. And, kind of like, what's the negative? The manufacturer's willing to make the investment, I think. But the last piece of it as the distributor that I think about is, for me to take advantage of that, I have to have the capabilities. I have to have the digital commerce capabilities to be able to do the transaction. And if I can't, it's hard to participate in that. It's growing pretty fast. I mean, you see it more and more and more. And here again, as a manufacturer, manufacturers like that because they can influence end users while keeping their valuable relationship they have with their distributor partner.
Yeah. One of the things that we promised in terms of takeaways for today was to talk a little bit about the risks and rewards associated with digital orders. Ray, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think I'll cut across just based on my experiences. I think, EDI, I'm sure we all know the risk and reward there, right? So I won't spend a lot of time on that. E-commerce, I think, you need to be, you as the potential, person who's going to implement e-commerce for your company, you better make sure you've got board approval and the board knows what it's going to take to invest, not only the platform, but the people to drive the result. That's super important. Two, be really mindful on what you think the incremental revenue number can be and or dollar shift will be based on kind of some of the assumptions that I made about customer behavior and changing customer behavior. And then the three, be mindful of the amount of time it's going to take to deploy, right? It could be 6, 12, 18 months. So when you're coming up with a business case, just make sure you're very pragmatic so you don't have to go back in 9 months and have an uncomfortable conversation with your boss about the results. And I'd say, when you continue to kind of walk down the line, if you look at our stuff, I think the risks are we have to make sure that there's a champion internally to drive the onboarding of the customers into the platform, right? Like, our solution is only as good if someone internally at SureWerx is making sure that those orders are flowing through our platform, right? If there's a fear at the customer service level, there's a fear of change, whatever the case may be, you're not going to hit the business case. Our technology is pretty easy to stand up. So it's not like you have to wait, and we do that, and we'll get you live in a month. So it's not like you have to worry about the time frame. You're not changing customer behavior. It's just making sure someone internally is going to be the champion to adopt it. So those would be a couple of the observations I'd have.
Going back to sort of the e-commerce and the objectives that are there some clear KPIs in that? I mean, Christian, you talked a little bit about really focusing on the action part of this, but are there some more strategic KPIs that you can really identify? I guess what I'm saying is, if somebody's going into this, how do you develop that clarity around what the end result is? What is the goal there, rather than just we know we need to do this to move forward.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think if I reflect upon our journey and then map it over to the question around, like, what do you measure in KPIs? One way to answer that is pick something and get going, because you already know where this is going, right? Like with this, again, the story's already been written. Like, there'll be the benefits. So pick some things that are logical, that are kind of a C+ or B- answer in terms of KPIs, and just get out of the gate. And within weeks or months, you'll improve that and change how you measure it. And for anybody that's done like Lean or Six Sigma, you could map this to that experience where over time you realize how effective your KPIs are, and you change them and redefine them and improve them as you find other failure modes and things like that. So one way to answer that is just get going. I think for us around digital orders, it's how many of our transactions and how much of our sales are coming in an efficient way as compared to an inefficient way. And I could picture, you could whiteboard this. You could say, what are the efficient ways and what are all the inefficient ways? And can we measure how many on each? And you could do this in I'll use the 2020. I was going to say in a conference room, I'll say on a Zoom. You could do this on a Zoom with a whiteboard in a few hours. You could do a back of the envelope really quick, cost benefit, and the case it's kind of a slam dunk, I think, for a lot of companies when you do that. It's a pretty easy case to make. And then you just, like what we do, we just track it over time. And we do report it. We report this. We do report it to our board every month. It's in the November document I submitted this morning. I sent it in for our upcoming board meeting. And so we track it all the way to that level. Maybe that's another thing to reiterate, Tom, is the importance of the focus from the top of the company on these things. And it's a major piece of the change management.
Yeah. In the last few minutes here, I just want to touch on, I mentioned this at the beginning around what competitive advantage is going to look like here in a post-pandemic world as we get through 2021. And to me, this is about sort of what the new definition of differentiation, which we also touched on at the beginning, in terms of, this isn't all purely about a transactional world, and a lot of the value-added pieces that distributors bring to the table. What does it look like in terms of this sales order automation piece? What does that look like in terms of differentiation and building competitive advantage?
Yeah, I'll take a cut at that if you want. I think one, it's, and you can see McKinsey studies and other studies, delighting the customer and customer experience, that's what's going to win in today's day and age, broadly defined, right? So if we're doing things with just effort and focus on delighting the customer, we're going to win. So how do I delight the customer? One, I don't force her to change the way in which she wants to buy from me, right? I'll go ahead and engage with her in the way in which she wants to engage. I'm going to delight her with just relevant content about the product that she's looking to buy, right? I'm going to show up wherever she's going to buy, and I'm going to be relevant there, right? So to me, if you just look at it from the customer's perspective, through the customer's eyes, and because we're customers, right? Like, we have great experiences with brands, and we have really bad experiences with brands. It's really no different in B2B. So I say you put yourself in that situation, and you're solving for those things, and you're being relevant wherever the customer is, you're going to differentiate from your competition. The winners in the business are going to invest in technology and modernize themselves. The losers will not. And we're working with the winners and want to continue to work with the winners who want to go make that happen.
I think that's right on. I think the customer, if you're in sales, like I've been for a lot of my career, and you've been on bad sales calls where the sales professional just shows up and starts talking a lot and explaining this great thing that they have. And then you get to the end of the meeting, and the person on the other side of the table is like, we don't do that. We have absolutely no need for that. And you just wasted everybody's time, instead of a great one where hey, here's what we've seen as some challenges. Do you have a similar challenge? And they explain they do, and then you map it to what they need. I think that never changes. That'll never change. And I think actually becomes a lot more important. And that's maybe the change is that's become even more and more important, because the Zoom fatigue, everybody has less time. Meetings are shorter, faster. The 5 minutes that you have is more critical. That's make or break. And so I like that one a lot, Ray, because I think it's a reminder for me anyway, that just becomes more and more critical the more complex that the backdrop of our reality is as we go into next year.
And gentlemen, that's a great place to wrap up. And thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate both of your input in the conversation, as well as the sponsorship by Conexiom. Thank you, Ray. And wish you the best for 2021 and a wonderful holiday break. Take care.
Thanks for the time, everybody. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye now.